Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ellen. So today for our lovely tutorial, we're doing a landscape using a lot of wet on wet techniques, painting this, bleeding in color, etc. Just a simple road with some trees in the background. I talk about ways you can make those mystical trees, just some simple techniques and brushes. Patreon members get the extended version where I just go in and make the tree and some grasses, talk a little bit more about that. If you want to be a Patreon member, click the link in the description box below. But without further ado, let's have fun painting this lovely little mystical landscape. All right, so I have a piece of Arch 100% cotton cold pressed paper taped on. I use Scotch Magic tape, it works for me, on a piece of cardboard so I can kind of manipulate if I want to, moving it around and stay stable. I just kind of drew like a simple little road. You know, with the abstract, you don't have to get real detailed, obviously, because it's an abstract. But you do want to have some kind of way that you're going to paint your trees or your land. So I'm just making a simple road. So it's, I would say, somewhat abstract, but definitely abstract. I'm going to take a Princeton 12 Neptune series. I'm going to loosen up some paint colors. I want to have like a mystical gray background, maybe put in some abstract, just gray trees and colored trees. So I'm going to start with some ultramarine blue deep here and mix in some burnt sienna. They make fantastic grays, and depending on how much you put in each color, one's more blue, one's more brown gray. And why would I make my gray? I've talked about this many times. These are granulating colors. They kind of fight with each other, and then the lovely 100% cotton cold pressed paper with all the nice little nooks and crannies in it, the granulated colors kind of fold into it, has this great texture to it. So it's just a preference thing. You know, you could use Paynes gray if you want, but the granulating colors is more fun and more creative, and that's why I choose them. So if you want to make it more blue gray or brown gray, it is really up to you by adding either more ultramarine blue deep or not. And see how I'm mixing up a fair amount here, because you know we need a whole surface area here. Okay, clean up my brush. Grab like a bigger brush just to get this whole area wet. I'll just grab a flat wash brush, 1 inch, and I'll get this top area fairly wet and go down to the side. I had like a landmass coming this way and then a little road, but this is the wet area. Just a simple craft brush. You can still use that to fill in the area. So I'm going to start putting in my gray. It will dry later. And I'm just kind of lifting it up so it bleeds down. And it gets lighter on the bottom a little bit. And just kind of bleed that lovely color. So now it's very, very wet. Right? We can play with this whole area. See that the granulation is already happening. It's already going in those little divots. Making a thicker paint consistency. So that's how you do that, is adding more pigment. I use tube paints because it's easy to activate. So I'm making a gray here. If it's still too wet, maybe just remove some of the wet gray and just take it like where it's right almost out of the tube. I can use a stiffer brush too. I can grab a number 12 aqua elite or even that flat wash brush. So now that's going to be thicker. You can barely move it as much, see? And you can start to play with making some trees. There's many ways you can do it. If you have a flat wash brush, you can hold it sideways like this. I'll grab this brush for you. And kind of wiggle the brush back and forth, up and down like this to get that like background of trees. And then fill it in the bottom here. See, I'm just wiggling that. Or you can use a stiff brush like this Princeton Aqua Elite 12 and do the same thing. And that's a little bit darker. Still damp, by the way. And I'm going to make them darker on the front. Look at that. Like rows of trees. That's how you kind of do it. I'll get a little more blue. I'll add some more ultramarine blue deep. And get a little bit darker. Coming down here. Still damp. Now you can also make the shape of a lovely evergreen tree. And I always tell people, this is a great brush for that, or any kind of brush that's got a nice point to it. Just go down the point. Maybe to make the paint a little bit thicker. And you can kind of just tap back and forth, leaving space in between. See little tippy taps? It's like dancing across the paper. Tap, tap. Get a little thicker still. The thicker the paint, it won't move as much. It won't bleed. And make it like a big old bleed. And we have a nice evergreen kind of going here. Go up a little bit more. Tap. Isn't that sweet? So see how simple that was? And I'll go back here. I'll go to another one, smaller. And you can just tap. Leave space in between. Of course, go up into a triangle shape. Getting a little bit thicker still. And it's damp at this point. It's not super wet. So thicker paint will stay longer. Get a little thicker on this tippy top. And I like to do things in threes. I'll put one over here. Again, and tapping left to right, smaller as I go up. Little tippy taps. Leaving some space. Get a little thicker with the paint again. Get even really, really thick. Get really darker on top. So you have two tones happening. Nice value. Get these a little bit darker on this side. And come down. Little taps and then the line for the lovely trunk. Look how sweet that looks. It's almost Christmassy, but I know this was going to be abstract. We'll just call it somewhat abstract. More of a landscape. So we're going to make some fall colors. We have cadmium yellow deep. We have cadmium red light. We even have brilliant orange. You can add some burnt sienna into that. And you can start tapping a little bit of this orange happening here. A little more burnt sienna here and orange with that. Go in between that little tree trunk that we made. Add a little yellow. So now it's, you see, fall. Look how simple that was. A little tippy tap down here while it's damp. I would make lollipop trees. You want them to have an asymmetrical. You can add more brown if you want. I'm at burnt umber or even just make a rusty kind of orange. And I'll tap on there on the left-hand side. Get some variety with your colors. This yellow would be like more of a mustardy yellow, adding the brown to it. Tip tap, still very damp. It's not damp, you can kind of spread, and then this kind of just spread out. And that's fine. I don't mind that. I'm gonna clean up my brush. I like the yellow. Add a little bit more yellow up in here. I'm just tapping the brush. The yellow paint is fairly wet. It's like tea consistency. So it's kind of really bleeding. But it looks really cool, doesn't it? It's so easy to do and so much fun. Just little tippy taps go a long way. And out here, I'll just tap a little teeny bit. And the tippy tap. And same thing with this one. I'll go back in while it's damp. And I'll add some richer colors. You know, reddish brown to it. A little thicker. Tapping. Love my taps. Now you can get a deeper brown. I'm mixing the brown with the blue here. I'm going to do a trunk down in here. Isn't that sweet though? Put a little peaky one here on the side. I kind of love digging it. It's very mystical. You know, you can make it more abstract if you just make blobs and kind of happening. And this little guy back here, I'm going to just kind of poke some color in between these little evergreen leaves. You can make it as bright as you want it or as light as you want it. I'll add a little orange, bright orange, just to punch it up a little bit, just make it more interesting. Put a little bright orange in here. Unexpected bright orange right there on the side. If I necessarily don't like that, I can kind of push it around and just kind of lighten that up a little bit. There we go. Now this didn't take much effort. You could do this 1,000 different ways. It looks so pretty, right? Add some more blue to this orange here, and it's getting more gray. And I can even put green in there. Prussian blue and yellow and brown, make a nice green. Why not add a little green? Evergreen. So again, the little line, and do some little dashes, making it an evergreen of green. More yellow, make it brighter. It's nice to have some grays and some greens. Unexpected. That was not that difficult, right? Got this nice little road. Now, for the bottom, you have to have some clear water. I'll clean up my brush, excuse me. And I'll just grab some clear water and go on this right side of this little road here. Remember, you can make any kind of road you want and go on the left side. And now we're going to play with color here. I might add all the colors I mixed here in the orange. Just loosen this up a little bit. Just start putting the color in here. Yellow. Some bright yellow. Already it's looking fantastico. We'll get some more depth in a minute. We're just going to put the color in. Just getting some yellow and some browns mixed in there. Just going really quick with my Aqua Elite 12 brush. This is taking minimal effort, and already it looks so cool, right? Start to add some browns. I have burnt umber here. I'll add some blue. Or even, oops, Paynes gray is brand new, so it's making a mess. So brown, Paynes gray. We can start to play with adding some of that dark back here on that side and a little bit on this side. Get some orange tone happening. I won't go too dark too soon, but I'm kind of loving that. You can bleed in little greens, whatever you want to do. I'll add some nice green. So you can make a peacock with some yellow to get a nice bright green. Throw some green in there. A little bit helps a long way. It'll bleed. It's still kind of very damp, so we can kind of play with this. Grab my orange color tones. Ooh, I like the orange. A little more bright orange in here. Ooh, yes. It's exciting, isn't it? Oh, get the little orange kind of happening with some brown back here. Kind of the road disappears, right? And a little here. Get this kind of cool fall greenery area, or you can even add more grays or browns, whatever you want to do. So let me add some more browns or grays in here. The road can be a nice beige. Let's get this a little bit more deep. Seems to be a lot of colors happening in here. Maybe I'll kind of tone it down by adding just more oranges or yellows, so it doesn't look so crazy. But you get the fall in there. And I would start to play with the road. So it can be beigey gray. I'm using the blue and the ultramarine blue and the burnt sienna. Get just a really loose, take this, make a really loose gray, going really quick. Making that road some gray. It might bleed into the other color, but that's okay. And kind of lift it up a little bit on this side. We're playing with some tonality here. So I would lift on the right and then lift on the left and leave the center a little bit darker. Getting a little bit darker color in here. Right? You need some deeper tones, some browns and some grays. Kind of playing with this over here. So ultramarine, Paynes gray and some burnt sienna. I'm adding to make a nice deep brown. I'm taking the tip of this brush and see how I'm just making this movement back and forth. It's very damp still, so you can play with this a little bit. I'll add a little orange in here. So now you can see the road more distinctly. Getting a little bit darker here. I know it's sort of bright yellow, but maybe you can go make it darker and deeper. It's up to you. It's very colorful at this point. I might add some more depth. Blue. Just grabbing some ultramarine blue deep and putting that color up in here. Now I don't kind of like how it's kind of having this, you know, it has a nice energy to it like this, but I want to make it like some foliage or some fauna has gone there. I'm grabbing some browns, a little bit of blue, kind of wiggling, I'm tapping in some fauna. Could be even deep greens. Just kind of changing up this. The road got a little bled. So I'm going to get a little bit darker down in here. I know, it looks a little stripy, huh? You got to play with it. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow and orange back in here a little bit. And over in here. It's pretty dark on that side. Maybe I'll add a little depth. Maybe some more blue. Now it's really dark, which is fine. Just kind of take your brush, hold it on its side, and kind of push it up like this. Some nice energy happening there. And I might just go back and just tap little oranges. Same thing with this one. It has this great energy to it. We've lost some of our color back here. Now let's dry it a little bit so we can just tap a little orange. The trees here. Yes. Feeling that road, getting a little bit darker here. So I just grab some deep browns, whatever you have, it works. Kind of play it up, tapping up here. The road is kind of gone, it's lost. And down here we can start to play with, you know, when it's drying, adding some grasses. Make some grays, a little bit in this road, a little bit dry brushing. So you're just kind of going like this with your brush. Now if it's too dark compared to the rest of the road, you might want to clean off your brush. Swipe a little bit of that water off and then just kind of push it down and blend it. Get a little bit darker down here. And just blend it up top. If this bothers you, you can add a little orange in here. You know, play around with the color on the road a little bit. And like I said, grasses. I always love to use a liner brush. You can do, at this point, because it's so damp, but it's not super wet. I could take the edge of a credit card, scrape some grasses. Now if it's super wet, it folds right back into it. If it's damp, you'll get to see the white. So you have to wait till it's not super wet. So, you know, here I'm like, I'm not loving how crazy dark that is. And if you want to play with lighting it up, you can lift it a little bit. So how do you lift that? Clean water on your brush and you kind of mop it. See, I'm kind of twisting this. You create some kind of texture, lifting. I love texture. You know, it's semi-abstract. It's not really abstract. It creates a nice little texture. Don't you like that? Don't have to do this, but I was feeling like It's getting so dark, and I love to play with lifting. I love to lift the watercolor. It's just a thing that I like to do, and I want to lift the edge of this one too, because then it looks like it's outlined. I don't want an outline. It would make no sense. I'm already liking that. Just give it a little lift. You know what I mean. And I'll twist this off a little bit, and you can kind of wisp out some grasses. You don't want to do this too much. You start to wreck your paper a little bit. But I like to play with twisting and lifting. And I'm going to go back and add a little bit of color back here again with this bright yellow. Just tapping with my brush. Right out of the tube, basically. Look at that. Do the same thing with the oranges. Oh, so much fun. And you've already created this simple, easy, like mystical landscape. And then you just go and add some more details if you want with some grasses and some fauna. And that's pretty much it. I might add a little bit more yellow, so I lifted it, but if you're going to add color back in, just do a little bit. Just a little bit of yellow back in here that I lost. Kind of liking that. And you can just play with, see again, the road here has an outline. It should kind of in a way, but if you want it kind of muted, just kind of lift and push it a little bit. It's up to you. These are fun techniques to play with. You can do this so many different ways. Look at that. So I would let this dry, and then you can add some fauna to it. So once it's dry, and it's going to dry later, you can go back in and get like any kind of brush that's kind of old and ratty, and I'm grabbing some browns and some grays. I'm just kind of mixing up fairly thick, and maybe wipe it a little bit, and just kind of go here and make some nice fauna. Back and forth, some grasses. You can kind of lift it, wiggle it back and forth, get a little dry brushing going here. And you could use a liner brush to make weed or whatever floats your boat. I love to use a liner brush like this, and I'll grab my lovely colors and I'll wisp up some nice grasses. They can go over the road. Kind of cluster them. I like to do like a little cluster down here, be kind of nice, and you can add some paint colors right out of the tube. See, I'm going here, I'm just going to grab this. And again, I'm wiggling back and forth. See, and go down here. Browns, browns, browns. You can add little wheat grasses. I'm kind of tapping it, making it look like a little fauna. Put a line down. This is where you can get creative, really creative. And like I said, you can add, just grab like yellow right out of the tube. A little yellow, tap, a little fauna of flowers. You can see that up close. Or orange. And if this seems too light, you could just go back in and add a little dry brush of browns. It's up to you, but don't do too much because you don't want it to overpower and wreck the paper. I like to play with it a little bit. Grab some ultramarine blue deep, get a little shadow happening. Play around with that. Get a little deeper again. A little bit lighter here. You could add more yellow again. Yellow greens. All that good stuff. Remove the tape and you have this beautiful border. And a beautiful picture that you created. So I hope you enjoyed it. Have fun playing, tapping. You know, once it dries, if it looks like it's too blended, and look how cool the colors came underneath that. Really kind of cool. And you can just go back in a little bit later and add a little more depth by just tapping a little bit more color. And after it, but I love the little depth with the colors underneath it and the granulation. Super fun. So I hope you enjoyed this. Take care. Now, if you're a Patreon member, you get the extended version. If you'll be a Patreon member, just click the link in the description box below. to become a Patreon member. So thank you guys for stopping by, and I hope you have fun just playing with color and the mystical backgrounds and all that good stuff. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.